Hello, this is Anthony. Let's sit and talk. As most of you know, I do these videos on one shot, but I was outside trying to do the video, and apparently, maybe with the weather, this is a day that a helicopter decided it needed to circle over the top. So I decided that, especially being that we're going to get rain here, I would come inside and do this video. So today we're going to talk about a Zen story I've created, and I'll get your perspective on it, but let me go right into it. So once there was this man, and he was on a very long journey, and as he was on this journey, he found himself thirsty, and the more he walked, the more the thirst grew. And as the thirst grew, he began to become desperate to quench that thirst. He began to become desperate for water. So he continued to journey further, and as he did, he came across a stream. And when he saw the stream, he rushed to it, and he thrust his hand in the water, and he was trying to pull water to his lips because he had been so parched from the journey. And the more and more he did it, the more he realized the futility in trying to grab the water. So he relaxed himself, and he put his hands together in reverence. He placed his hands into the water, and he received. He received the water, and he was able then to drink fully and quench his thirst. Now, the reason I had been considering this parable, because I was looking at and considering a lot of aspects of life, and I felt like this really talked about that way that people tend to think. They tend to think that the doership is what gains them all of the notoriety and wealth and acceptance and happiness. But the issue with the doership is that the doership tries to force life. The doership tries to force itself on the world. And as you know, forcing yourself on the world really is the equivalent of being like the salmon trying to swim against the current. Sometimes you can get there, but a lot of the time it's futility. And you see, I don't think most people understand that there is another aspect to life that really can be even more fulfilling and of value. And that is just going with the flow of life. You see, the difference is this. The ego finds it difficult to go with the flow of life because the ego requires things from others. It requires acceptance and acknowledgement and validation. You see, but when you are able to heal and you're able to integrate ego and purge, some of the aspects that are unhealthy, what happens is you soon understand that you are whole and complete. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and in the podcast they were talking about how really change is difficult, and the reason change is difficult is because you're taking yourself from something that is familiar, a familiar environment, such as in all aspects, meaning if you get up and you walk into the kitchen every morning, your body's used to that, and your body finds it to be a familiar aspect, and your brain finds the activity to be familiar. And the reason change is so difficult is because in order to change, you must place yourself and your body in a situation that's uncomfortable, and you must consciously continue to do so until that uncomfortable becomes comfortable. Now, we've talked about that in the past, but what happens on this journey, and this is something that they talked about that I found for self, is that once you are able to truly connect with self, once you are able to truly, purge some of the toxic aspects of ego and then integrate the others, what happens is you begin to feel whole and complete. And the thing is that when you begin to feel whole and complete, then flowing with life just seems natural. It was interesting that I heard this, because this is something that I've thought about and struggled a little bit with in some aspects, because I feel like, and again, from an ego perspective, I've had people tell me or tell others that, it's people who don't have that drive for something, they lack purpose, and those who aren't working, they're lacking purpose, and that's why they seem like they don't attain certain things. Yet I think there's an aspect of life that is completely opposite to that, and that aspect is that when you're whole and complete, you don't have a need or desire for things, and you become placed in a situation where it's much easier to be grateful, to stay in the moment and be grateful for all things that you have in the moment. And because you don't desire, if you're whole and complete, you don't necessarily desire anything outside of self. And so for me, that's when the real beauty can really happen. That's when you can, instead of trying to force your way through life, as the man tried to force the water to his lips, you can just be in reverence and receive. And when you're able to be in reverence and receive, it's easier to stay present. It's easier to see all the miracles and the opportunities of all things that exist all around you. You see, to me, that's an aspect that people don't understand. Even the psychologist Carl Jung talked about this. It's those synchronicities that when you're present, you begin to see the synchronicities around you that are guiding you, and you are able to see those opportunities around you more easily. And when you're able to see those opportunities, it doesn't require force in order to receive things. You see, as we've talked about before, life to me is like Earth School. Every day is a lesson. And every day, the lesson isn't about what's external to you, it's about what's internal to you. For instance, when you go to school, and let's say, I used this example the other day. Let's say you go to school and you're learning math, and let's say you're learning addition in math. And so you get to certain aspects where you are then tested on what you've learned. And, the interesting thing about school is, you go to the as above, so below, where, essentially everything is a microcosm of the macrocosm, meaning everything that happens in the universe happens, on the smallest scale. For instance, rotations of the planets and rotations of, protons and neutrons in an atom. There's a lot of similarity in it. So I go back to when you are, taking those tests in math. Once you pass the tests, you don't go back and relearn how to do addition. You've already learned the lesson. So you move on to other lessons. Such is life, you see. And as you go through this life, you're presented with aspects to test you. One aspect could be, for instance, a lot of people, let's talk about driving. Some people get road rage when they drive. And what happens is they see all of the things around them, and it makes them angry, and they want to shout, yell, and scream. But when you begin to change the way you view those things, and you say, oh, that person cut me off, he must be in a hurry. Maybe there's something happening in his life. Maybe his wife's having a baby, or someone's in the hospital, or he's got a sick child, and he was in a hurry. Then you begin to understand that he didn't do that to you. He was focused on something that was important to him. And when you understand that, then it's, for me, it's easier to then have grace and go, oh, well, why would I be upset about that? Why would I want to yell at that guy, chase him, whatever? And see, for instance, for that lesson, what's happened to me then is less and less have I had people cut me off. Have I had people do things like that? Because I've learned the lesson, and so the universe begins to not reflect that lesson back to me. So when you start talking about this, this receivership and being present and being able to see the synchronicities, It allows for you to experience a lot of very miraculous things that you couldn't even imagine experiencing if you in your mind said, here's the plan of what I'm going to do and here's how I'm going to achieve this thing. You see, I think that as you begin to understand that how the universe works and how this is an interactive universe, and the universe reflects back to you things inside of you in order for you to in order to have your attention, in order to heal, in order to evolve and grow. You understand that when the tests come up, when you start passing the test, then these things reflect to you less. You know, a lot of people psychology will talk about, you know, people who think positively versus people who are negative thinkers or pessimistic, and how those who are positive thinkers, they generally have more positive things happen to them in life. It's not because they are incapable of having negative things happen to them. It's because they try to look at the positive aspect and how it helps them to grow and evolve. They try to look at the positive aspects of every event. And when they're able to do that, they're able to reframe events in order to help them to grow and evolve and have more positive experiences. Where the negative person might view those experiences and they might consider themselves to be the victim, in which case you can't flow through life as a victim, because then you aren't receiving the lesson. You're grasping at the water instead of allowing it to come to you. You see, floating on that raft, things are going to float to you, they're going to float by you. And what most people don't understand is that when you trust the universe and you trust in the journey, a lot of times the things that float to you are a lot more amazing than the things that you might chase after or try to force. But what say you? How do you feel about that parable? Do you think that the man approached it the appropriate way? Do you think he grasped at the water and tried to force it out of desperation? And do you think that the lesson that he was being taught was to not live out of desperation and to trust and believe and have faith? As always, if you enjoy this content, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm truly grateful. Until I talk to you again, peace, love, light. I hope you have the most amazing day.